All right, everybody, welcome in. Alea Moon here with you, or some of you might know me as Ali, and I am getting some Palo Santo ready to open up our time together with. So I'm inviting you to be comfortable where you can receive this information. Perhaps you are driving or doing something that is totally okay. However, there might be some things that are really, really interesting that you might want to take notes with. So have that nearby. Our time together today will be in form of a lesson. So if you want to grab something to write with, something that you can take notes with, because I'm pretty sure there might be some really juicy information that I will share that you might want to write down. And so I'm coming in with a very light, flowy, and fun energy. I am going to open with a little story, and then I will lead into my lesson for you guys today. In today's class, I will be talking on all things of pleasure. I think it's a really important and powerful topic to begin speaking into and bringing more awareness into, as more people are awakening and softening into their bodies and are really looking to explore what else does it mean to be human, and what does it mean to live in this reality, and how can we achieve that bliss and these beautiful orgasmic states of being that so many spiritual teachers are talking about. I would like to open up with exploring the word healing and what does it really mean. And then we're going to slowly dive into the world of sexuality and healing and all the things that are going to follow. So when I speak and teach about these things, I have like a diaphragm that I work around, and the space is around different bodies and how different things affect different bodies that we have. So first thing that I want you guys to understand is that we have multiple different layers of bodies. You have this body that's physical, that's your skin and flesh and bones. We have a body that is mental. This is that mental space realm where thoughts come through, where ideas come through. This is also a realm that is kind of manipulated by the information that's also floating in the collective mental realm. The third body is your emotional body, and this is the body through which you get to feel all this spectrum of human emotions, from sadness, rage, to joy and excitement, to neutrality and contentment. And so through the emotional body is where a lot of trauma gets stored into the physical body. And then we have our spiritual body. This is that body that extends beyond us and through us, that guides us and navigates us on information that we might not be able to see or hear. But the spiritual body is your energetic body. It's the body that notices when you walk into the room that there is something funky or the energy is off, and you can notice that. That's your energetic body picking that information up. And so when I do my energy healing work, and when I work with myself and I help my clients navigate through different dynamics, I really like to ground this study of everything that I teach to two things. And one thing is these four bodies and understanding how we function and how they function through us. And then the second thing is understanding our chakra system, okay? I'm going to briefly go over about the chakras because it's absolutely essential to know what they are and how they function and what their responsibility is in order for us to understand the next directions of the healing steps that I will be sharing with you guys. In order for us to understand the deep dynamics of healing that we are capable of doing in our own bodies, it's important to understand how everything that is present on the physical dimension, such as illnesses, disease, things that are happening in your body, is usually a manifestation of a long-seated emotional wound that you've never let go, you've never cleared, and you've been carrying this heavy burden that eventually calcified and became physical in this reality. So from my teachings, everything that we experience here in this physical body originates in our mental and thought realms. And as I am moving into the direction of working through the chakra system and teaching you guys about the chakras, I want you to keep paying attention to specific things that might resonate for you to see where you are in balance or out of balance. All right, you guys, so we are now looking at the 7 chakra system. All right, so this is coming from the Sanskrit Indian traditions of energy work. Chakras are energetic wheels that are spinning one way and then the other way. One way is bringing information in, the other way is pulling information out. So you can look at these as non-physical but energetic vortexes on your body, within your body, that circulate and move energy. And every chakra is responsible for different aspects of your well-being, including mental and physical. Every chakra has a specific color, a different tone, a special crystals. They associate with different astrological planets as well as musical notes, days of the week, and they have specific mantra sounds to help heal and activate. The chakras are not a physical thing, you guys. You have to understand this is all energetic. The only way we can connect to this is number one, believe that it's real and feel, see, and breathe into the areas to begin working and activating through them. At the base of the root chakra, this is not really important for this video, but I do want to cover this. At the base of your root chakra is where we have our Kundalini energy, the double serpent snake that lives here. And with time, when you begin to open yourself up spiritually, you begin to do different types of breath work and meditations and moving the energy. Eventually, the snake begins to rise through the chakra systems, bringing one to a state of enlightenment and bliss. And so when we work with chakras, the intention is to really open ourselves up so that we can expand and enlighten. So your root chakra is your base, your foundation, your stability and grounding on this earth. A Sanskrit term for it is Muladhara. The element here is of earth, meaning for you to connect to the root chakra, it's important for you to connect to earth, to nature. Bring your feet outside, grounding through being connected to her. The color here is red, and the mantra sound is Lam. So with the healing practices to work through the chakras, to activate the energy, we want to use sound. Even in Tantra, sound, breath, and movement are the essential elements of alchemizing energy, of burning things that are inside you that are stagnant, of moving them through, of transforming them, of bringing them into love and high vibrational energies. This root chakra is responsible for your adrenal glands. And when you are balanced, you feel grounded, present, stable, secure, abundant, and courageous. When this root chakra is out of balance, you might be experiencing things like low self-esteem, low sex drive, insecurity, and procrastination. When this chakra has excessive energy, one can be self-centered, materialistic, dominating, and greedy. Now let's take a look at your second chakra, your sacral, the Svadhisthana, and the element here is water. Our sexual chakra is responsible for our ability to feel, for the creative flow of inspiration. This is energy through which we channel our sexuality and our pleasure. And so the mantra sound for this chakra is VAM, V-I-M. And when this chakra is balanced, one is feeling creative, passionate, in love, sexual energy flowing, and working harmoniously with others. Because your second chakra is also how you relate to other people. When there is deficiency in this chakra, one might experience sexual difficulties, having a lot of buried emotions, jealousy, and envy. And then when there's too much energy in the chakra, one can experience sexual overindulgence, emotional volatile, and being manipulative and self-serving. And so the key here, you guys, is to really bring in balance to all of these energy centers. And I'm going super deep into the energetics right now, you guys. This will link up to pleasure, I promise you. This is just really important to know because the chakras are the foundation of my spiritual work, of my teachings, of everything I do. I have them tattooed on my back, I have them on my pillow, and it's just a reminder that as we are spiritual, energetic beings, we are beyond the flesh and bones. It's essential to begin tuning into the energetics of who you are and how you function. And so let's go ahead and move to the third chakra. Your third chakra is solar plexus. The Sanskrit name is Manipura. The element here is fire, and you can think of this chakra as the sun chakra, coming out outside, connecting to the sunshine, feeding that energy. Through this chakra is where we feel our self-esteem, we feel empowered, we feel confident. And when you're not feeling confident, the opposite side, the deficient side of this energy center is feeling insecure, angry, anxiety, having low self-esteem, lack of discernment, guilt, and shame. And so for today, I want to really focus on the 7 lower chakras to move along with our teaching today, because this is really important to understand, is that how we get trapped in the matrix of life, in the emotional roller coasters, in the dwelling of resentment and angry thoughts and not being content with life, is when we get stuck living in those lower energy centers, all right? And the lower energy centers, the 3 main concerns of the lower chakras is the attainment of money, sex, and power, okay? So today we are not going into the higher chakras, the heart, the throat, we're not quite there yet. Today I really want to focus on the 3 lower chakras and how imbalances energetically within that is what is causing a lot of people's inability to be sexually expressive, connect to their pleasure, and to really experience life in a more blissful state of being. And so with the introduction of the 3 lower chakras, I have covered the energetic, the spiritual energy part of my 4-body healing practice method. The reason why it's really important to be understanding that there's layers to healing is because in traditional Western practices, most of the healing done is on the symptoms. We're not going to the root cause of these illnesses to really understand why they manifested in the first place. So with what I've been really passionate about is going the full circle and understanding the entire holistic way of what happens in our bodies and why, and what can we do on all levels to heal it. Because if we're only healing the symptom on the physical layer, but we've never dealt with the emotional and the mental creation of that physical illness in the first place, then it might just return. And there's a lot of people who had treatment, who went through these different procedures where they had illness and then it went away. And then because they only treated the physical, the illness ends up coming back. And I'm usually talking about things like cancer. And so now we're gonna go ahead and take our direction into a little bit of a not so pleasant conversation, but it's absolutely a must because we have to understand how trauma and our wounding is actually suppressing our ability to step into these new realms, because there is healing, there is density in our body, and we really need to be able to clear all that before we can go on and learn about ecstatic tantric pleasure practices. And so I would like to ask you to close your eyes, or if you're driving, don't, but take a moment to tune in inside and ask yourself, what was your first sexual experience like? Was it pleasurable? Was it painful? Was it traumatic? Was it abusive? What was your very first sexual experience? Okay. And so when I ask this question, a lot of you might go into the times where you lost your virginity, or times where you had, some form of sex for the first time. And so from there, I want you to go a little deeper and really see if there's layers beneath that of what could be the memories of your very first sexual experience. Most people don't talk about things like sex and pleasure openly in our world today. It's way too taboo and way too underground. However, that does not disregard the fact that this is something very natural, and it's something that all of us are experiencing or have experienced. Our sexuality is part of our human life, whether you like it or not. And in my life especially, I look at sexuality as a gateway towards spirituality if you look at it from a sacred and divine perspective. However, in our world today, most people did not have this awareness growing up. Most people had awareness that their sexuality is to be shamed for, it's something to hide and never talk about. And the wounding of our sexuality has started way before we had our first conscious sexual experience. And so as I am opening up into this new realm, I'm going to be touching on the psychological and physiological effects of sexual trauma. And I'm going to be going between topics of the male and the female experience. And I do want to make it clear is that it's really important for us to understand our sexual wounds and trauma. Perhaps for most people, we're not even aware of what they are and how they show up in our lives. We have to understand that before we can really go learning about pleasure. And so as I'm going to be talking about these things and the wounds and what's going on, just kind of tune in and really feel if any of that has touched you in your life, and if any of that are seeds that are buried within yourself that are waiting to be seen, waiting to be acknowledged, and waiting to be healed. So for a lot of men that were raised in this world, especially in America, in the Western culture, there is such a thing as circumcision, okay? Any man that has been circumcised has a deep-seated trauma, sexual wound that has taken place the moment he was born on this planet. So if you are a man and you've been circumcised, there is a very deep wound that you might not be aware of feeling betrayed, feeling abandoned, and disconnected. And so for men, this deep-seated root of disconnection is actually deeply in the energetics linked to your energy, to your mother, to the feminine, all right? So for a lot of men and in our world today, the major issue is their disconnection from their feminine energy. Not their feminine as in their female, but I'm looking and talking about the feminine as the energetics. We have the male energetics, and then we have the feminine, female energetics. And so as I'm going through this is what I'm referring to. And so the mother wound, the disconnection wound for a man, is a really huge wound to begin looking into at the deeper spiritual energetic levels, to really go to the root of why you might be having issues in your sexuality, in your relationships with your mother. You know, there's a lot of these wounds of betrayal, resentment, of abandon that a lot of men have in this world. Women too, but I'm focusing on men in this particular segment. And so let's say you were not circumcised and you grew up, you know, the way God has designed you to. And by the way, just like a shortcut on circumcision, you guys, like, God does not make mistakes. Okay, if you are born in the way of God, God did not make something for nothing. So I really invite you to look into the aspects of circumcision and really dig deep as to what they're doing, why they're doing it, and what is that skin is being used for, because that's a rabbit hole of its own that you can explore. But long story short, a lot of men now actually are going through different procedures to regrow their skin that has been taken away from them at the point where they had no choice and no consent. So like, imagine, you know, a soul coming into this earth and this body, right? It wants to feel safe. It wants to connect to the divine mother, divine father. And then the first thing that happens, the toddler, I keep calling the toddler, the infant straight up goes under the knife into surgery. So even though it's not an adult, the consciousness within that body has experienced that trauma. And so when I'm talking about looking at your energetics, looking at your mental and emotional bodies, I mean, physical, obviously you've got circumcised, but looking at these three bodies is how you can deeply link the root to what the issue is beyond just everything else. We have to go to the root. Now let's take a look at the feminine core wounds, the wounds that many women of this world experience. This is a wound that I'm going to share that I personally experienced, and then I'm going to share other wounds, okay? So for women, one of their biggest wounds is being abandoned by their father. The wound when you are born into a family where you were not wanted, where the father didn't want you, and you were born without having that grounded support of the father energy. And so the root cause of that eventually seeps into not trusting men, because the first man in your life was not there for you. He couldn't support you and love you the way you deserve to be. So the root cause here is lack of trust in men and in this world. And in addition to that, a lot of women also sadly experience a lot of sexual abuse from their family members, from their fathers, from their uncles, from their brothers at a very young age. And for women that I'm talking to right now, you know exactly who you are, and you know exactly what kind of wound of betrayal you have deeply seated within yourself. The anger and betrayal and this resentment towards the masculine because he's taking advantage of you when he should have known better. And so for the feminine, some of these core wounds are really leading into that disconnect, mistrust, and abuse from the masculine. And so we have these energies of the betrayal and resentment and abuse, and these have been literally seeded into you like before you were even walking. Okay, like all of this is very, very deep. This is like the spiritual, psychological warfare that's going on, that's been messing with the polarity, messing with how we're supposed to function, because we're supposed to be harmonious beings. We're here to live in harmony and peace and love. So when you are this loving, gentle soul who is born on this planet, and the first thing that happens to you is trauma and abuse, then guess what? That suppresses your consciousness. That doesn't allow you to fully be your full expressive self, that spiritual being that you are inside. So as I'm talking into this, like, this is what we need to be doing to be healing the root cause, so that infinite spirit within you can awaken and you can be free, truly who you are, came here to be. All right, so now let's go ahead and move into some other traumas that we might have accumulated along our journey of becoming adult. So I'm gonna go into the first erection and masturbation on men's side, and we're gonna talk about losing virginity and getting periods on the female side. And so I wanna take a pause here and go back to the chakra system just to show you guys something. As we have been talking about these key trauma wounds, let's look at the root chakra here, because your root chakra is where you feel grounded, safe, secure in this world. This is a place that, the first place that begins to open up as your energetic center. So for people who had this abuse and trauma early on, there could be some really necessary work to be done in the realms of healing the root chakra. I just want you guys to continue paying attention how all of this is connected through the energetic, the mental, emotional, and physical bodies. Whee! And I had to take a break, and as I am coming back to talk about shame, the sun is coming out to shine some light on all these interesting topics. And so one thing I want you guys to understand is when I'm talking about things like fear, guilt, shame, betrayal, all of these are emotions, energy in motion. And so when we begin to have experiences in our life where perhaps we don't fully feel that emotion, or we suppress it, or we feel bad about wanting something, doing something, all these like yucky energies are very dense, and they eventually accumulate and they build up and they harden inside of your body, causing disconnection. And the entire journey of sexual awakening and healing is to reconnect to our bodies, reconnect to our healthy emotional state of being, reconnect to our clear mind, to thoughts that are healthy, that are nurturing, and to also purify and cleanse our energetic body so that we can allow for the expansion that is available to all of us. The energy of shame in particular is very dense, and it's lurking through our collective in many different ways. And so for male and female dynamics, the elements of shame has begun again at a very early times of development. For boys, a lot of it could have came during first times they had an erection, first time they were caught masturbating. Especially for boys, the topic of masturbation doesn't very much come up between, you know, your mom or your dad. There isn't much guidance and education for what to do when you begin becoming an adult and all these hormones are flowing and you have erections and you want to masturbate. And so for a lot of men, there is this element of deep-rooted shame of, you know, not wanting to be caught, not knowing if this is right, not knowing like what you're doing. And then the element of pornography starts to go deep. And I'm going to touch on pornography in a little bit, but pornography has a very huge psychological effect on how you perceive sexuality, yourself, and partners that you connect with. And so on the female side, we have the topic of losing your virginity, getting your period, and understanding like, what is this body all about? I believe that a lot of women were not educated on the aspects of pleasure and how to receive pleasure, how to really know what it's like to experience pleasure in your body, because again, nobody talks about these things. Nobody talks about what is pleasure, how to really tune into this thing within our bodies. And so a lot of women go into intercourse also just like men, not knowing what to do, not knowing how to be. And so for both men and women, the element of pornography comes into play sometime during teenage years, when you begin to, sneak around with your friends watching porn in a basement while your parents are upstairs. And this was like most people's first exposure to what is sex. And let me just be clear, pornography is not love making. It's not making love. It's sex, it's fucking, it's penetrative, it's an act. And everything that's happening in porn is another layer as to why humanity is so disconnected from what is sacred pleasure. Because before we can go into sacred pleasure, we have to clear all this gunk that has been settling into our consciousness, into our emotional body, into our spiritual and energetic bodies, to understand like where we are blocking ourselves, And so for men, their idea of sexuality is heavily formed from their early experiences of hardcore masturbation, to a point of perhaps hurting yourself. I know that not all men are aware that you're supposed to use oil, lotion, some form of lubrication. I've personally spoken to clients who've said that in the early days they did not use lotion and they completely tore themselves up and their skin got all sensitive. So again, you guys, these are the things that we lived through. Most of us are already adults and we lived through all that. But again, I'm just going into those details of where those first elements of trauma and disconnection began to happen. Pornography is a very huge conversation when it comes to sexuality, because the way pornography has shifted the idea of sex completely disconnected both men and women, because what is being portrayed in pornography is not really what is happening in real life. And so when boys learn how to have sex through those videos, they're completely getting the wrong idea of what it's supposed to be. And so for most women that are inexperienced and they're having sex with men who all they know is porn, and they're being penetrated and fucked the way that men see it on porn, then the woman feels in a way attacked. She feels hurt, she feels pounded, she doesn't really know how to relax into her pleasure to fully receive that. And so in a space where there isn't love and intimate emotional connection, and intercourse happens and there's pain and discomfort, and for a lot of women during intercourse, they don't experience orgasms because they are so tight and they're not able to fully trust perhaps the partner that they're with. For most people, their first sexual experiences were not their greatest. For a lot of boys, men, there is a lot of fear of erectile dysfunction, of not being able to last as long as they want, of having this nervous and anxiety about performance. And then for women, it's also that. It's also fear and anxiety about whether we can be accepted and loved for who we are. There has been so much agenda about what is it like to be a woman, what is it like to be a man, and there's really no healthy examples of the divine feminine and divine masculine. And so as we all grew up on all the media and all the societal matrix, we have been conditioned in all these messed up, distorted ways of what is what, and we just never really had a clear chance, a clear understanding of what is sexuality, what is pleasure, how to enjoy it, and how to treat it like something very sacred. And so as I am moving into walking you through the journey of pleasure and how we can heal our sexuality through pleasure, I want to go back to those chakra points and point something out to you guys. In order for us to truly experience blissful state of beings, our sexual energy needs to rise into our heart, into our throat, and into our higher chakras. However, when we have all these dense energies of fear, shame, and guilt lurking in these lower energy centers, they're creating not only physical blocks, but like I already said, mental and emotional and energetic blocks. So we really have to do the clearing work here before we can work with our sexual energy. And if you were to practice the Buddhist Tantra, the majority of their practices are focused on clearing out energy that is stuck in your organs. Every single organ within your body contains an element to which energy it holds. So before we begin working on trying to raise this energy up, it's important to clean up the pipes, you guys, because otherwise, if you got all this fear, shame, and guilt lurking in your lower chakras, and you're gonna begin doing these exercises and awakening your Kundalini energy, what can happen is that energy will flow, but it will also raise all that shit and all that gunk that you're dealing with, and it's just gonna make it worse, because Kundalini energy will purify and burn through things. And if you're not emotionally ready and you have processed through those things, it can be a very powerful and sometimes traumatic experience. And so your first practice and homework to take away from this presentation is to do the lower chakra healing and clearing work. Meditations on YouTube, chanting those specific sounds, listening to frequencies that heal you, repeating affirmations for every chakra. You know, in our root chakra, if we don't feel safe, if we have been raped or abused, the root doesn't feel safe. So repeating things like, I feel safe in my body. It is okay to be here. Universe always takes care and protects me. Repeating those affirmations is how you begin to restructure your subconscious mind. And through the subconscious mind is how we can really go to the root and cure what it is that we're dealing with at the root. And so moving through the chakras, working with the second, the sacral chakra, working with forgiveness, healing your womb as a woman, working with any insecurities, shame, betrayal energies in your womb space, healing the connection to the divine masculine. If there has been abuse with the divine masculine for women, there's a huge energy of mistrust. And that's why we can't open up our full heart self to men, because we can't trust yourself. Because with everything that happened in the universe, there has been situations where we felt betrayed and abandoned by the masculine. So for women, the deep work is connecting to that masculine energy. And for men, the work is connecting to the feminine, to the softness, and to the nurturing of yourself and your body. And so the emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical aspects are all what's going to take for you to heal through those blocks of sexual energy stagnation that are preventing you from fully experiencing ease, bliss, and surrender in your body. For the sexual energy and the pleasure, the eros energy to flow, again, we have to be open, we have to be pure, we have to allow it to come through us and bless us. And one of the easiest ways to move energy, to navigate and help it come up once you are doing the mental and the affirmation work and clearing that subconscious gunk, is to start connecting through practices of embodiment. Practice of embodiment literally means doing things that bring you back into the body, into this physicality, and connecting to the senses, connecting through all the senses that we are able to experience through this human temple, and to really begin loving and pleasuring and touching yourself in a new and conscious way. And so the second homework for you guys, for men and for women, is to take time out of your day, 30 minutes to an hour, and learn how to touch yourself. How to touch yourself in a way that feels good, that feels soft. Beginning to massage your body, massaging your feet, your legs, your thighs. As a woman, getting really connected through your womb, through your inner thighs. As a man, connecting to your breast, you know, feeling that heart energy, massaging your chest, massaging your shoulders. There is so much taboo about touch and connection and intimacy. And unfortunately, that's the path of breaking through all those limiting beliefs and all these societal conditions of what is sex, what is pleasure, what is relationships. because we have been living in a fallen world where every truth has been disturbed. It has been twisted and manipulated, so there is disconnection. And the whole point, the whole thing of spirituality and tantra and sexuality is so that you can reconnect to your higher self, to your heart, to your divine union within, so that you can experience oneness with yourself and with God. And so in my life, I use pleasure as part of my spiritual practice. I use pleasure as part of my devotion to myself, my body, my temple, as my devotion to God, as my devotion to my work in Tantra. And I invite you today to also bring in pleasure as part of your practice and your healing and awakening. In my future lessons, I'm going to be talking about things that we can bring into our life, physical tools, you guys, that we can explore our pleasure with. I'm going to be touching on things for women and things for men, and there's just so much more that this can expand into. But today I really wanted to focus on explaining the energetics, the emotional ways, the traumas and the wounds that disconnect you from fully feeling yourself, from moving that sexual energy up, and share a little bit of these 2 tools with you as your homework for the rest of the month, whatever. I usually say it takes 21 days to change a habit. So if you can listen to a specific video affirmation and work on every chakra, work on clearing these emotional dense energies, fear, shame, guilt, betrayal, abandonment, rejection, healing and clearing these energetic things, emotional stagnant energies, will help you open up, so then when you do begin touching yourself and exploring pleasure, those things of shame will not come up. Because I can't sit here and teach you how to properly masturbate if you're gonna go do it and then you're gonna feel guilty about it. Do you see where I'm going with this? So you have to do the homework first before you can go into the next level. And the next level is going to be my future classes, where I'm going to be teaching about all things pleasure for the females and for the males, and sharing whatever else will be inspired in that moment. And so as you get more connected into your body, as you begin to soften and clear and really elevate your energy, the energy of Shakti, the Kundalini life force, will naturally begin to flow through your life. And then the element of pleasure will expand beyond just sexual pleasure, but now you can experience pleasure in all aspects of life. And this is what I love about my practice with Tantra, is that the pleasure practices for me are not just within the body, within the sexuality, but also within the outside of me, being able to look at colors and textures of nature in a way that I get aroused by, being able to sit on the beach and feel the wind touching my skin and feeling aroused by that, being able to drink a delicious yummy smoothie or ice cream and feeling it, how it sips down through my throat, and being aroused by that. And so this is where we begin to move into, as with time, you take the time to heal yourself, to move through these blocks, to purify, to cleanse, and so that your body can be open for receiving the next level and the bliss of life that's available for us here. And so on that note, I am going to wrap it up, you guys. This was my first recording of a class. I hope you guys enjoyed it. There's going to be some edits to this. And yes, all in all, you guys, it's been so much pleasure sharing this information with you. I intend to continue loving, educating, and inspiring you guys into moving into the realms of self-awareness and self-exploration, and sharing tools that I have personally used that supported me in this journey. And until I see you next time, everyone, namaste.